is a veteran? A veteran, whether active, duty, discharged, retired, or reserve, is someone who, at one point in their life, wrote a blank check made payable to the country of Canada for an amount up to and including their life. That is honor. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Orleans Legion Branch 632 for the annual Remembrance Day ceremony. My name is Dan Mooney, alongside Lieutenant Colonel Gary Mulder, retired from the Royal Canadian Air Force. Gary, thanks so much for being a part of our broadcast once again from Orleans Legion Branch 632. What, as a veteran, as a retired member of the Air Force in this country, what does this day mean to you personally?
It's a very special day for me because I have some very strong memories. Not that I was available or remember the actual war. I was only 4 years old when it finished, but I lived in Holland at the time, which was under German occupation, and the Canadian liberation of Holland was a big factor in my education and my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always very special.
As a member of this Legion branch, what is the significance of this day for you as a member for such a grand ceremony that happens on an annual basis?
Well, I've been a member of this Legion for quite some time and visit quite regularly. So I have a lot of friends here, and it's camaraderie that pulls me in, and remembering all the ones that went before, including some of the more recent people that have passed on as we get older. That's the important part of it, as for me.
This is always such a well-attended ceremony, but given the weather this year, this is one of the first years that we've had this much snow on the ground for these Remembrance Day commemorations.
Well, it is cold, but the crowd seems to be thickening quite a bit. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised at the numbers that are here again. We usually draw 3,000 people or so, but I think we may be coming close to that again.
The ceremony here has been an annual remembrance of service by Canadian veterans over the years. This certainly no exception for 2025. This the biggest day of the year for most Legion branches across the country. This has been something that it's a way for folks who don't want to get into the downtown core at the National War Memorial to come and pay their respects to the service of veterans over the years.
Yeah, well, my wife and I, we used to go downtown because it was, a very special setup over there. But lately we've come here because the crowd is not quite as big, but it's pretty big, and it's close by, and it because of the Legion pulls us in, so it works well that way. I'm always amazed at the number of young people. I think young people seem to be getting more education about the whole idea of remembering, and it's good to see them coming out.
John McCrae's poem, written during the Great War between 1914 and 1918, perhaps more commonly known as World War I, in Flanders Fields, has been a staple of remembrance in this country for a very, very long time. But a few years back, a young man, a 14-year-old boy named Joshua Dyer, was tasked at school to write a poem for Remembrance Day. This was back in 2019, so 6 years ago. An hour later, without any help, he produced the following poignant poem. It's called 1,000 men are walking. 1,000 men are walking, walking side by side, singing songs from home, the Spirit as their guide. They walk toward the light, my lord. They walk toward the sun. They smoke and laugh and smile together, no foes to outrun. These men live on forever in the hearts of those they saved. A nation truly grateful for the path of peace they paved. They march as friends and comrades, but they do not march for war. Step closer to salvation, a tranquil, steady core. The meadows lit with golden beams, a beacon for the brave. The emerald grass untrampled, a reward for what they gave. They dream of those they left behind, and know they dream of them. Forever in those poppy fields, there walks 1,000 men. Joshua Dyer received a letter from the office of the Duke of Edinburgh before he passed away, thanking him for producing such a moving and heartfelt piece of creative writing. Now, isn't it inspiring, Gary, to hear of a 14-year-old boy that writes a poem of such depth?
It's very, very impressive, and I'm always impressed by how young people come forward and do wonderful things like this. It's okay, is that better? Good. Yeah, the young people, like I said, they really do impress me. In fact, I brought a copy of Flanders Fields. I thought we might need it, but your poem suppresses or passes that. I think it's a wonderful poem, very impressive.
There's Color Party and the RCMP pipe and drums, and always impressive each and every year to see these retired folks participate in this ceremony. And having grown up in an RCMP family with both mom and dad, still really isn't much that's more impressive than the Red Surge. The Parade of Veterans. Always very proud to march on a day like today.
Yes, unfortunately, the number of the war veterans is dwindling, of course, but it's good to see them still come out, in spite of the cold.
Active service members and the young people that we alluded to just moments ago in the Cadet Corps, always very proud to participate as well.
Yeah, I think those cadet programs, those are wonderful programs for getting people involved. And there we have our mounted police. Something special this year.
Crowd control.
Yeah.
No, this is something very new. We've not had the mounted unit represented in these ceremonies in the past. And this, my 11th here at Orleans Legion Branch 632. This is always so impressive. And no doubt it will be an arduous task to stand in this cold.
Yeah.
I would imagine they have a few layers on underneath, because other than that, it doesn't look like they're wearing very much.
I think the numbers of troops or people on parade is larger than what I remember. It's quite a few.
Young people, veterans, and citizens from around the Orleans area that come out on an annual basis to pay their respects to the people that made so many sacrifices so that we may enjoy the kind of life we live in this country.
Yes, it's the ultimate sacrifice, which is it's a bit of a scary thought when you think about those people that passed. I mean, they were mostly young people. You know, I remember visiting some of the war graves in Europe, and you know, row upon row upon row, and there's literally thousands of people buried there. And you look at the ages, and it's very impressive. You know, 19, 20, 21, all young people. Not all, but a good chunk of them.
With the ceremony about to begin, there will be a full infield of representatives from each branch of the armed services, all the first responders, and we'll turn things over to our Mistress of Ceremonies, Joyce Bisson, who is one of the executive members of Orleans branch of the Legion 632.
Good thing we got the monitor so we can at least see. Blow a torch.
632 of the Royal Canadian Legion. My name is Joyce Bisson, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies today. Bon matin, Mesdames et Messieurs. Nous vous souhaitons la bienvenue à la filiale 632 de la Légion royale canadienne. Je m'appelle Joyce Bisson et je serai votre maître de cérémonie aujourd'hui. Pour honorer les peuples autochtones qui vivent sur cette terre depuis des milliers d'années, nous reconnaissons que la Légion royale canadienne est située sur le territoire traditionnel et non obligé du peuple algonquin et anishinaabe. Nous reconnaissons et respectons les gens algonquins et anishinaabe comme les gardiens passés, présents, futurs de cette terre et nous nous efforçons de travailler avec eux envers la réconciliation de la guérison. To honor the indigenous people who live on this land for thousands of years, we acknowledge that the Royal Canadian Legion is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. We recognize and respect the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land, and we strive to work with partnership with them towards reconciliation and healing. In a few moments, our service will begin with the singing of the national anthem, led by the Cumberland Community Singers and the Ottawa Boys Choir. Please join them in singing. Dans un instant, nous commencerons notre cérémonie avec notre hymne national qui sera mené par les chanteurs communautaires de Cumberland et le Ottawa Boys Choir. Veuillez vous joindre pour chanter l'hymne national.
Hooray! Attention!
En 1918, à la 11e heure du 11e jour du 11e mois, les armes de la Première Guerre mondiale est devenu silencieux. Depuis ce jour, nous avions tenu une cérémonie de souvenir pour les camarades qui, dans les océans, sur la terre et dans l'air, ont donné leur vie pour leur pays et leur souveraine. Leur sacrifice nous inspire à continuer le travail, d'assurer l'assistance pour ceux qui sont revenus et qui ont besoin d'aide, et de faire du pays où nous vivons et pour lequel ils sont morts un lieu digne du sacrifice qu'ont fait ces soldats et leurs familles. In 1918, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns of the First World War fell silent. Since that day, we have held a service of remembrance for those of our comrades who by sea, by land, and air have laid down their lives for their sovereign and country. Their sacrifice will ever inspire us to labor on so that those who survive and need our aid may be assured of assistance, and that the country in which we live and for which they died may never be worthy of the sacrifice they and their families made. Please join in singing the hymn Abide with Me. Veuillez nous joindre en chantant l'hymne Abide with Me.
Of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent on the Western Front to bring an end to the First World War. For over a century now, our nation and the Commonwealth have solemnly recalled that moment through our Remembrance Day events. Almost 10% of Canada's entire population of 7 million people served in the armed forces during the First World War. The Second World War provided a rerun. We think of the trauma experienced by loved ones on the home front, the parents and the spouses who received word that their child or their spouses had died in the service of their country. On this Remembrance Day, we pause again to remind ourselves that the freedom we enjoy came at a price. It was bought with human currency. We are here to show our gratitude for all those brave Canadians who willingly paid the price, and for the many more who were crippled, scarred, and haunted by war. We are here to thank them for giving all that they had so that we could live in peace and security. Malheureusement, au moment où nous réussissons, beaucoup d'autres régions du monde sont encore paralysées par la violence, la guerre et l'oppression. Aujourd'hui, au moment où nous nous réunissons, des soldats, des marins et des membres du personnel de la force aérienne continuent de porter le flambeau avec bravoure pour le Canada dans plusieurs endroits du monde. Nous sommes ici pour montrer notre gratitude à tous ces braves Canadiens et Canadiennes qui ont volontairement payé le prix et aux nombreux autres qui ont été paralysés, marqués, hantés par la guerre. Nous sommes ici pour les remercier d'avoir donné tout ce qu'ils avaient pour que nous puissions vivre en paix et en sécurité. The Holy Book says, I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. The Lord God Almighty is with us. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Le livre saint dit, Dieu est pour nous un refuge et un appui, un secours qui ne manque jamais dans la détresse. L'Éternel est mon berger, je ne manquerai de rien. Il me fait reposer dans de verts pâturages, Il me dirige près des eaux paisibles. Il restaure mon âme, il me conduit dans les sentiers de la justice à cause de son nom. Oui, le bonheur et la grâce m'accompagneront toujours, tous les jours de ma vie, et j'habiterai dans la maison de l'Éternel jusqu'à la fin de mes jours.
Ils ne vieilliront pas comme nous qui leur avons survécu. Ils ne connaîtront jamais l'outrage ni le poids des années. Quand viendra l'heure du crépuscule et celle de l'aurore, nous nous souviendrons d'eux. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Parade, stand at ease.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row that mark our place. And in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Au champ d'honneur, les coquelicots sont parsemés de lot en lot auprès des croix. Et dans l'espace, les alouettes, devenues lasses, mêlent leur chant au sifflement des obusés. Nous sommes morts, nous qui songions la veille encore, à nos parents, à nos amis, c'est nous qui reposons ici au champ d'honneur. À vous, jeunes désabusés, à vous de porter l'oriflamme et de garder au fond de l'âme le goût de vivre en liberté. Acceptez le défi, sinon les coquelicots se faneront au champ d'honneur.
À ce moment, nous demandons à tous ceux qui posent des couronnes de se diriger vers le côté gauche du cénotaphe. At this time, we ask that those who are laying wreaths make their way to the left side of the cenotaph. You can go that way, I guess, yeah. I bring them up first, and then we'll do the... They're not looking at me. You're on now and then after. You're on now and after the wreath. You're on now and after the wreath. Are they all in place? No? le gouvernement du Canada, Federal Member of Parliament for Orleans, Marie-France Lalonde. On behalf of Memorial Cross recipient, les Mères du Canada, récipiendaires de la Croix du Souvenir, Comrade Marty Keats from the Legion Executive Committee, whose eldest son serves in the Canadian Forces, Master Corporal Stuart Keats. The Province of Ontario, la Province l'Ontario, the Honourable Steve Blais, Member of the Provincial Parliament for Orleans. City of Ottawa, la Ville d'Ottawa, Councillor Matthew Luloff, Laura Dudas, and Tim Turney. The Canadian Armed Forces, Department of National Defense, les Forces armées canadiennes, Lieutenant Colonel Nathalie Wispinski, Director General Aerospace Equipment, Program Management. Combat Engineer Regiment, 33e Régiment du Génie de Combat, Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Ning, Commanding Officer, and Warrant Officer Thompson, Regimental Sergeant Major. The Royal Canadian Legion Orleans Branch 632, la Légion Royale Canadienne d'Orléans, filiale 632, Comrade Mike Adams, President. While the President is laying the wreath, we would ask that you say a prayer for the branch members who have passed away since our last Remembrance Day. May they rest in peace. Ray Kuta, William Gilmore, Leonard Marks, Janice McMullen, Stephen McPhee, Alan Turner, Richard Traversy, and Walter Wilson. Ladies Auxiliary of Branch 632, les Dames Auxiliaires du filiale 632, President Wendy Fortier. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, la Gendarmerie Royale du Canada, Constable Alexandre Bélanger, Orleans Traffic Section, and Staff Sergeant Stephanie Ning, National Headquarters. Ottawa Police Service, Superintendent David Zacharias. I will now read out the remainder of the wreaths that are being laid. Wreath layers will be escorted to the Cenotaph in order in which their names have been read. The ceremony will continue once the laying of all wreaths has been completed. Hong Kong veterans, Vétérans de Hong Kong, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Paul J. Conley. D-Day veterans, 27th Armored Regiment, Sherbrooke Fusiliers, anciens combattants du jour J, 27e Régiment, Sherbrooke Fusiliers, Michael Brennan. Indigenous veterans, anciens combattants autochtones, Jim Grant. Veterans of Afghanistan, Vétérans d'Afghanistan, Captain Retired André Fournier, the Royal Canadian Regiment. RCMP Veteran Association, Ottawa Division, l'Association des vétérans du GRC, Division d'Ottawa, retired RCMP officer Jim Thomas, representing RCMP veterans. Naval Association of Canada, Ottawa, John Miller, treasurer. Veterans Task Force, Groupe de Travail des Vétérans, Councillor Matt Luloff. Royal Canadian Dental Corps Association, l'Association du Corps dentaire royal canadien, the Colonel Commandant of the Royal Canadian Dental Corps, Brigadier General retired Vic Langtis, and Chief Warrant Officer retired Mario Bézier. 410 Wing Royal Canadian Air Force Association, 410 l'Escadre, l'Association d'Aviation Royale Canadienne, Squadron Leader retired Bill Sunderman. Youth of Canada, Jeunesse du Canada, Girl Guide Rangers, Emma Nigeria and Unajian. Le Pin Apartments, Orleans, sponsored by Hassan Dayek and laid by 3018 Army Cadets. Society of the Knights of the Round Table, Société des Chevaliers de la Table Ronde, Chief Warrant Officer retired Jack Andrews. Mouvement d'implication francophone d'Orléans, Orleans Francophone Involvement Movement, Mélanie Routier-Boudreau and President Carol Jolin. Communauté haïtienne d'Orléans, Jean-Daniel Badette, Rosanna and Moïse Borsiquet, Eddie Cherry, Musette Pierre Jérôme, Joseph Register. Chevalier de Colomb, paroisse Sainte-Marie, 1500. Raymond Gagné, retired Major, Canadian Air Force. Knights of Columbus, 4th Degree Assembly, 2230. Assemblée des Chevaliers de Colomb du 4e degré, 2230. Paul Bourque, John Saint-Jean, Paul Dufour. Knights of Columbus Assembly 78-73, Assemblée des Chevaliers de Colomb 78-73, Grand Knight Paul Bourque, Financial Secretary Robert Corrigan, Warden Paul Dufour, and Chancellor John Saint-Jean. Orleans Lion Club, Ian Baker Gregory. Kiwanis Eastern Ottawa and Orleans, Grace Mayu. Rotary Club of Orleans, Teresa Whitmore. Immediate past District Governor 7040, and Hamjaj Radaj, President, Rotary Club of Orleans. Orleans Star, Fred Shorin, Publisher. Orleans Federal Conservative Electoral District Association, l'Association de la Circonscription électorale fédérale conservatrice d'Orléans, Tracy Wilson, President. Orleans Provincial Conservative Association, Association conservatrice provinciale d'Orléans, Colonel Retired Stephen Plourde. National Women's Liberal Commission, Commission libérale nationale des femmes, Douabesh, Membership Chair. Orleans Federal Liberal Women's Club, Club des femmes libérales fédérales d'Orléans, Rachel Lecourt. Orleans Provincial Liberal Women's Association, l'Association provinciale des femmes libérales d'Orléans, Batul Siddiqui, President. In memory of Bill Toombs, Diane Champagne on behalf of his wife Monica Toombs. In memory of Raymond M. and Janine Saint-Louis, their son Claude Saint-Louis. In memory of Robert Saint-Louis, Claude Saint-Louis. In memory of Master Warrant Officer Raoul Ray Fournier, Warrant Officer Retired Roger Fournier. In memory of Tail Gunner Sergeant Roger Fournier, his niece Patricia Gamble. In memory of John Hardy, Diane Champagne on behalf of John's granddaughter Marlene Frost. In memory of Major Richard Yerberg and Captain Christopher Yerberg, 3018 Army Cadet, on behalf of their daughter and granddaughters Shelley Yerberg. In memory of loving husband and squadron leader, Major Retired Steve McPhee, his wife Dolly McPhee, and his daughter Renee McPhee. In memory of loving husband Leonard Marks, 30th Field Artillery, his wife Susan Marks.
Tout-puissant, créateur et soutien, dont l'amour nous enveloppe dans la vie comme dans la mort. Nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui pour t'offrir nos remerciements et pour nous rappeler avec réjouissance ceux et celles qui ont sacrifié leur vie pour préserver la paix et la justice dans le monde. En silence et du plus profond dans nos cœurs, nous te rappelons le nom. Dieu éternel, nous te confions tous ceux et celles qui souffrent dans leur corps et dans leurs esprits des horreurs de la guerre. Veille sur les familles et les membres des forces canadiennes sur la terre, en mer et dans l'air, qui, avec nos alliés, luttent bravement contre les forces de la tyrannie et de l'oppression. Sois présent auprès de nos dirigeants, afin que sous le gouvernement, nous puissions cheminer vers la paix, la justice et la réconciliation. Dieu d'amour, entends nos cris que nous t'offrons avec foi, confiant en ton amour éternel. Donne-nous le courage d'être braves et de préserver ce qui est bon. Que le Dieu de paix soit avec nous aujourd'hui et toujours. Amen.
Almighty God, may we never forget the example of those who served and those who still serve. Give us the grace to intimidate them in the spirit of sacrifice and service. Help us to carry with honor the torch of freedom that they have so proudly passed on to us. We thank you for the peace we enjoy here in Canada and for the opportunity we have to build a better future because of the sacrifice of thousands of brave, gallant soldiers. O God of mercy, remember the spouses, the children, the loved ones of those whose lives we honor today. Bring those who are currently serving back home safely to their families. Be present with our leaders so that their leadership we may walk the path of peace and justice and reconciliation. God of love, hear our cries which we offer to you in faith, trusting in your eternal love. Grant us the courage to be brave and to hold on to what is good. And may the God of peace be with us today and always. Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, please join the choir in singing God Save the King. Mesdames et messieurs, s'il vous plaît, vous nous joindre en chantant God Save the King. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending our Remembrance Day service today. Everyone is invited inside where there are refreshments available. There will also be live entertainment starting at 1 p.m. this afternoon. Please remain in place until the parade has marched off. Mesdames et messieurs, on vous remercie d'être venus à notre cérémonie du jour de
A lovely,
souvenir.
wonderful ceremony as is the case on an annual basis here at Orleans Branch 632 with every aspect of the community involved in this remembrance and reflection of the sacrifices made by so many that all of us benefit from in this country. Dan Mooney alongside Lieutenant Colonel Gary Mulder, retired from the Royal Canadian Air Force, and as the color party leaves, your thoughts on another tremendous ceremony here in the east end of the nation's capital.
Yes, it certainly was an impressive ceremony, and I think we should maybe mention that this was a bit of a special year because a lot of volunteers and the ladies of the Legion got together and created these huge poppy memorials, one of which is strung up between the flagpoles there and some of them inside. 11,000 plus poppies that they knitted together and sewed onto this canvas tarp, and a very impressive item.
Continues to be impressive each and every year, and what perhaps maybe even more impressive, Gary, is the fact that it seems at this location more and more people turn up on an annual basis to pay their respects to the sacrifices made by veterans and those who continue to serve actively.
Yeah, it's encouraging, and of course the population in Orleans is growing like crazy anyway, but people are coming out, and in spite of the cold, as we said earlier on, we didn't really expect a huge turnout, but it turned out to be a huge turnout.
It's the least that all of us in this country can do, regardless of the conditions, if our veterans and our active service members are willing to lay down in this kind of weather for weeks and months on end. The least that the rest of us can do in thanks and in remembrance of those sacrifices is stand out here for an hour.
It feels good to be part of it again.
People from every aspect of the community involved and represented, and the good folks at Orleans Legion Branch 632 are very, very aware of representation in this ceremony, and they continue to do that, this year no exception. So, as the color party leaves, we will continue to reflect on what we've witnessed. Now, as is tradition at these ceremonies on an annual basis, people will line up to place their poppies on the cenotaph, and that's always a very, very somber and sobering gesture to witness. Everybody loves to take part in this because it, I suppose, is a very, very small contribution in recognition of things and events that have been lived by so few to the benefit of so many. So, as things wrap up here for the official ceremony, there will be festivities inside the Legion branch. There'll be a little lunch, an opportunity for people to thank veterans and active service members for the service to their country, and we are so honored to be a part of this on an annual basis. We're going to say goodbye and thank you for joining us. Special thanks to Lieutenant Colonel Gary Mulder, retired from the Royal Canadian Air Force, and our entire crew. Thank you so much for joining us here on a very, very cold, blustery November 11th here in 2025. My name is Dan Mooney. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye for now.
D-Day, the greatest seaborne invasion ever attempted. The Allied objective? To pierce Hitler's Atlantic Wall. The liberation of Europe depended on its success. Canada's job was to take one of 5 beaches along the northern coast of France. The Air Force, Navy, and infantry rehearsed for months. The ground troops chosen for the beach assault were the 3rd Division and 2nd Armored Brigade.
When we started our training, we began to realize what loomed before us. Untried troops would dare to set foot in Hitler's Europe.
June 6th, 1944. The Canadians headed towards a strip of Normandy coastline codenamed Juno Beach. D-Day would be their baptism of fire.
The enemy sprayed them with bullets as the Canadians ran down the ramps of their assault craft. Men dropped crossing that open beach, but the main force got over it and struggled through the barbed wire. It took 2 hours of brutal fighting for the beach defense system to be shattered.
D-Day achieved what many thought impossible. American, British, and Canadian forces had gained a foothold in occupied Europe. The Canadians reached 10 kilometers inland, the furthest advance of any Allied soldiers that day.
How did these men ever do it? How did they break through? The only answer was the indomitable spirit of those magnificent troops.
There wasn't a lot of people that walked around with artificial legs, but to us, he was just our dad. He's never showed us that he couldn't do something. If he was going to do it, he did it.
I'm Doug Cushway from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and I joined the war ramps in 1946. This is Jody here, and she's coming this afternoon. This is Robin here, and she's coming this afternoon. Me and my wife taken down in Arizona. That was a picture taken in Quebec. Come in.
Hi, Dad.
Hi.
How are you?
And I have two girls in Regina, one Joni and one
You
Robin.
remember these pictures, Dad?
I remember we went on leave to Florence, about 12 of us, and this is in the Canadian Club in Florence.
Oh, you look so young there. He does.
Yeah.
I see Parker in him there.
Joined the Army when I was 18 years old and drove a tank. So I was making $1.75 a day then.
Trained to live on very little food and be without shelter for days and nights together, they must keep in the best physical condition.
When I signed up, I had done my basic training in Regina. And then they shipped us down to Camp Borden. And after Camp Borden, we went to Windsor, Nova Scotia. And eventually we got loaded onto the Queen Mary and headed out to England. At that time, they turned it into a troop ship, and there was 25,000 troops on board. And from England, they put us on a train and went down to Aldershot. We done a lot of route marches and rifle drill and stuff like that. From there, we went by ship to Italy and landed in Naples.
This is Matthew Halton of the CBC, speaking from Italy. Between us and Rome, there are still 80 miles, and many demolitions, and lots of dirty little jobs for the infantry. Always at the last, that job has to be done by fighting men in the face of machine gun bullets.
After Casino fell, they sent us up to the regiment. That's the first time I'd been with a regiment. It was the Royal Canadian Dragoons, which was a reconnaissance organization. And I was with A Echelon, and they gave me a truck to drive. We weren't in the fighting line. We had trucks that carried all the ammunition and the food and gasoline. One time they sent 12 of us back down south to Naples to pick up new trucks, and that was quite an experience. Had to drive through Casino, which was all bombed out at that time. We were at a place called Ravenna. The sergeant in charge of moving us got on the wrong road. The truck blew a tire. And when we all closed up, we got out of the truck to go see what was the matter, because it just sounded like another gunshot going off. And that's when I stepped on a shoe mine. And it blew me 5 or 10 feet in the air, and I landed in the ditch face down in 3 or 4 feet of water. The guys dragged me up from the ditch onto the truck, took me to the advanced dressing station. When I got wounded in Italy, the Canadian Pacific Telegraph sent this to my father in Moose Jaw, Mr. Leonard Cushway. Minister of National Defense sincerely regrets to inform you that Trooper Douglas Henry Cushway has been officially reported wounded in action. They moved me to Cattolica, to a 3rd General Hospital. Trooper Douglas Cushway has now been officially reported again dangerously ill, amputation of both legs below the knee. When any further information becomes available, it will be forwarded to you as received. And there they gave me penicillin, which was fairly new on the market at the time. But while I was there, they sat me up, and it was the first time that I'd realized that I'd lost both legs. And when we landed in Canada, Ralph Hodgson, which was a war amputee from the First World War, come out to visit with the wounded. And he showed us his artificial leg. And that was the first time I'd seen an artificial leg. It was fitted with artificial legs on my 21st birthday, which was, I guess, my present for that day. They were making the legs the same way as they did after the First World War. They'd take a block of wood off the shelf and scoop out the middle and jam your stump in and say, "Where does it hurt?" And I've been walking on these since I was 21, so I don't know any difference. One thing about this, I don't have to change my socks or my shoes. The same socks have been on there for donkey's age. I was a rink rat in Moose Jaw before the war, and they told me in England that I would never skate again, but I did. I put on a pair of skates.
And you went out skating.
I skated when I was curling. I'd done a lot of curling.
Some old pictures from some war amp days.
Oh, look at. I can't remember a day where you haven't been involved with the war amps.
When I joined the war amps, I come down to Regina to the odd meeting, and eventually when I got transferred to Regina, I was secretary of the war amps for many years, and there was, at that time, 125 amputees in Saskatchewan.
I've been part of the War Amps organization for quite a few years.
The CHAMP program will carry on for many years because it's probably the only program in the world as far as I know.
My name is Angie. I'm 19 years old. I am a above-knee amputee. I feel really privileged to know war amputees like Doug and everything that they've helped me with growing up in CHAMP.
Well, the kids do a lot in the war amps. They seem to adjust pretty easily because they're young.
The war amputees have really inspired me because I've always looked up to them. They were my role models growing up, and some of the things that they've taught me, I hope I can teach some of the younger chaps and become their role models.
Okay, big smile, looking here, 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that, beautiful.
Play safe parade. I go to the one in Saskatoon. Play safe, drive safe. I usually go and meet the kids prior to the parade.
Play safe, drive safe, spot the danger before you play.
And then on the parade, I usually ride in the van behind the float, wave to the people.
Operation Legacy is a program within the War Amps. What we do is on Remembrance Day or special anniversaries, we go to local cemeteries or even the cenotaph downtown and lay wreaths.
I had laid wreaths in Regina here for many years, but now the senior CHAMP kids lay the wreaths on November the 11th.
To me, the message of Operation Legacy is to teach and show people what our war vets had gone through and what they have seen in order to get our freedom, and that it never happens again.
I think it's quite important that the senior champ kids are able to do that for us. Angie has been laying a wreath at the cenotaph, I don't know, for a few years anyway. We're quite proud of Angie laying a wreath for us.
Whenever I'm doing any kind of event for War Amps, I always feel honored. It makes me feel really lucky to be able to have the opportunities that I've been given.
The champ program has done a lot since it started, and it makes me feel very good, and it's still going strong today.
These famous scenes of Canadians landing on Juno Beach were the first motion pictures the world would see of the D-Day invasion. The cameramen who scooped the international press were soldiers from the Canadian Army Film Unit. Their job was to follow the infantry into the thick of battle and capture the action with their 35mm. These famous scenes of Canadians landing on Juno Beach were the first motion pictures the world would see of the D-Day invasion. The cameramen who scooped the international press were soldiers from the Canadian Army Film Unit. Their job was to follow the infantry into the thick of battle and capture the action with their 35mm movie cameras. The invasion of Sicily in July 1943, a year before D-Day, marked the first time Army cameramen went into combat. Sergeant Norm Quick, who served in Italy, recalls the reaction he would get from the troops.
They'd say, "What are you doing up here? You can get killed." I said, "Well, so can you." I said, "We're taking film of you fighting the war. We're recording history."
Cameramen wrote cut lines and sent the film back to the London headquarters of the Canadian Army Film Unit, which produced weekly newsreels shown in theaters. They were soldiers first, as they moved with the forward units, jumping from planes, storming beaches, and dodging sniper fire.
You just went in and whatever was going on, you photographed it. I used to go in on top of the tanks.
Their heroic efforts to capture the frontline action often put them in harm's way. In Ortona, Sergeant Jack Stollery moved away from safe cover and set up his camera in the middle of the street to film the fierce battle. He was awarded the Military Medal. Sergeant Harry Barnett was filming reconnaissance footage in preparation for the Rhine assault when his plane was spotted by a Messerschmitt.
Machine gun bullets find their mark in the back of the cameraman. History is recorded even to his last breath.
Today, the cameramen who once recorded history are all but a footnote in it. But their legacy is the film that documents the Canadian Army in World War II.